Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video on budgeting. Now, I speak from experience when I say this. Budgeting is not fun, it's not exciting, and it takes a lot of work. But I do honestly say, having worked in the finance industry for many years and actually doing it myself, it's a very valuable tool when it's implemented and done effectively. And the reason why a budget is so important is because it allows us to be aware and mindful of our spending and allows us to look at what our habits are. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to creating wealth for ourselves, having a strong foundation is key. Because everything else will become a little bit easier if we can know and are aware of what we're spending our money on. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share 5 steps with you that have worked for me in my budgeting experience and hope that they can benefit you as well if you're just starting out. So let's jump into the 5 steps, starting with step number 1. Know your net income. What we want to do here is we want to look at how much money gets deposited into our bank accounts at the end of every pay cycle. Whether you get paid bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or even monthly, we want to see how much money gets deposited in that bank account. Now, if you get paid bi-weekly, to get your monthly number, what you can do is you can take your paycheck amount and multiply that by 26, which is the number of bi-weekly paychecks that you're going to receive. And then divide that number by 12 for the number of months, and that will give you an approximate number of how much money would be deposited in your bank account on a monthly basis. Now, if you get paid semi-monthly, you'll get paid typically on the 15th and 30th of every month. You can just combine those two numbers together to get your monthly number. And if you get paid monthly, no calculations involved, you'll see exactly what gets deposited. So for those of you who are commissioned, take a look at how much income you're projected to make this year and divide that number by 12 to give you a rough idea of what your monthly income may be. And again, I'm commissioned myself. So one of the other things you could do is look at your previous year's income or the previous 2 years' income. And if it's been pretty consistent, divide that number by 12 to give us a number of what we'll be making or could roughly make at the end of every month. The other thing to note is when we look at our pay stubs, you'll often see something called gross income. Now, what gross income means is this is income before any deductions have been taken out from your paycheck. So that could be any CPP if you pay that, which is the pension plan here in Canada, any EI expenses, again, if that's something you pay, and any withholding tax from your paycheck. That's gross is mean before any deductions. Net income, like I mentioned before, is the amount that gets deposited into your bank account, means that all the deductions have already been taken off. Now, this brings us to step number 2, track your spending. Now, this is where the heavy lifting needs to be done when it comes to putting a budget in place, because this is where we're going to start looking at where our money is being spent. The best things we can do here is we can log in online to our bank account and see our bank statements, our credit card statements, and any sort of loans, lines of credits, or mortgage payments that we have and track that number down. Now, what I like to do is I like to use a simple Excel spreadsheet and track everything there. But with also the advancements in technology, there's so many apps out there that also help you budget as well. So I won't touch on any specific apps for on the budgeting side, but what I would recommend you do is see what works best for you. Now, if you choose to take the Excel spreadsheet route, one of the things I would suggest is that you categorize all your expenses. And one of the categories could be housing. Whether you live on rent, live at home, or own your own home, what you want to do here is you want to note down all your expenses that goes towards your housing, such as rent, a mortgage payment, utilities, a property tax, home insurance, anything that goes towards paying for your home, I would categorize and put down here. Second would be personal. So this includes things such as dining out, if you pay for any childcare expenses, any sort of personal care items, and also any bank charges. The one thing to be aware of here is that if we have a checkings account with the bank, typically there may be fees associated with that. And they vary. Sometimes they're $3, sometimes they're $15. But the banks may also waive these fees depending on how much money you have in that checking account as well. So again, double check to see if you're paying any bank fees. And if you are, note that number down. 3 would be health and other expenses. This would cater towards expenses that go towards prescription medication, medical, dental plans, anything that we're paying out of pocket for our health, or even if we're taking care of a loved one and providing for a loved one and expenses that you're carrying, I would definitely note those down in this category as well. Then we have entertainment. So this could be any gym memberships, any other club memberships that you may have, streaming services such as Netflix, Disney Plus. With all the streaming services nowadays, it feels like we're paying for cable, but I would definitely note all those things down here. And this could also include travel. How often do you go traveling? Do you go every month? Little things like that. Put that here on the entertainment side. Then lastly, we have transportation. So this could be any transit passes that you may pay for. If you own a vehicle, how much do you pay for license, registration, oil changes, fuel? Note that down here. Any expense for your transportation, whether you take city transportation or if you own your vehicle, track that number and write that down. Now, once we have all this data collected, what I like to do is sometimes we may miss an expense or two when it comes to budgeting. So I add a miscellaneous category and add an extra $200 to $300 in that category to cover any missed expenses that could have been overlooked. And at the end, this will give you how much money you're spending on a monthly basis. Now that brings us to step number 3, analyze and optimize. What we want to do here is we want to see how much money gets deposited into our bank account, which was step 1, and we want to subtract step 2, so all the expenses that we have. If you have a positive number, that means you have disposable income at the end of every month for you to utilize and put towards your goals and savings. But if it's a negative number, that means you're overspending what you're actually bringing in. And now would be a great time for you to look back at your expenses to see things that you may not even need in your expenses or that you can cut completely. And speaking of looking at areas where you can cut on your monthly expenses, one of the great things is see where you can potentially negotiate any of your plans, whether that be your cell phone plan, your car insurance, or your home insurance. See and look if you can actually bring that plan down, bring that cost down. Because when it comes to cell phone plans, for example, oftentimes if you pick up the phone and call your provider and you ask if there's any plans or promotions available, they will offer it to you if you're a loyal customer. Or you can also shop around to see what else is available to you. And that's what I've done. I like to shop around on the cell phone side because I find that phone plans here in Canada are quite expensive sometimes. It's always nice to see what other plans are being offered from other providers. And if it can save you a few bucks, why not? And oftentimes the plan may be better by switching. But the one thing to note is if you are on a month-to-month basis on your cell phone plan, then you can switch over to another provider if you have found a better deal. But if you're in a contract currently with your provider, what you'll have to do is you'll have to pay out the amount remaining on your cell phone before your contract can be finished. Again, call your provider to see what options you have and if there's anything that they can do for you. And even on the home insurance and auto insurance side, typically there may be fees when it comes to canceling early or within that contract term. But as soon as it comes up for renewal, shop around. Because at the end of the day, I've yet to see a company call someone and say, you've been such a fantastic and loyal customer. Here's all these promotions and we're going to bring your plan down. Typically what happens is they don't call you or your plan rates go up. So if you have had the experience where they've called you, fantastic. Let us know who you're with. But I've yet to see that happen. So this is where we need to be a little bit more proactive, but it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone to even call and ask. Because at the end of the day, if there's cost savings to be had, why not? And if they say no, at least we tried. But that's one thing I found very valuable to do. Step 4 is set your goals. Now, if you have disposable income at the end of every month, what are you hoping to achieve with that money? Is it for your retirement? Is it to put your kids to school if you have kids? Is it for traveling, purchasing a new car? Whatever it may be, write that down. So for example, if traveling was one of your goals, what I would do is write that down and say, every 5 years in June, I will spend $10,000 to travel. Now, once you have that goal amount written down, then we backtrack. So what does that $10,000 look like every year? That's approximately $2,000 that we need to save every year for the next 5 years to get us to that amount. Then take that $2,000 that we have every year and divide it by 12 to see how much we need to save on a monthly basis towards that goal. And saving $2,000 a year is approximately $167 a month, which is not a lot towards working towards a goal of traveling every 5 years. And the beautiful thing here is once you know that number, and if you have a pretty healthy disposable income chunk on the side, once you've taken into consideration your travel goal, you may have extra disposable income that you can cater towards other things as well. Again, retirement or putting your kids through school, anything like that, that can be put towards that savings. But the reason why, again, a budget is so important is because here it can give us some clarity on how much money we can save towards things that we want to achieve. Finally, step number 5. This is review the plan. Now, oftentimes, if there's not many changes in your life, reviewing the plan quarterly and annually is suffice. Pretty good. But if you have had a major change, such as you lost a job or you got a job, your dynamics change, now you're raising a family, add those expenses into your plan and adjust when those situations come up. Because a budget is supposed to be changing with you and evolving with you. It's not meant to be static. So as your needs change and as your life changes, your budget will also update and reflect those changes as well. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're on top of our finances and we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a stressful situation. So if we're being mindful of where our money's going, that can take a lot of stress out when it comes to making financial decisions, even when major financial decisions come up in our life. So this brings us to the last part of this video, which is how to stay on top of a budget. Because like I mentioned earlier, creating a budget is no fun and it takes some time. But doing this process, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves out or stress ourselves out because that's the worst thing we can do. And if that happens, we most likely won't be coming back or even putting a budget in place, period. What we want to do is we want to take little steps if we can to start working towards putting this budget in place. So whether it takes a week, 2 weeks, or even a month, one step at a time is the best. And one thing you can do is start small. If it's tackling one expense a week, such as housing, do that. And then the following week, tackle the next set of expenses, such as entertainment or health. But ultimately, once that budget is set in place, it'll take a lot of stress off of our plate because now we're being more aware and conscious of where our money is being spent. And the second part of sticking to a budget is make one small change at a time. So once you've established your budget, if there's something that you see that you could potentially take out, such as dining out, if you feel that maybe you're eating out too much and you want to take that out of your budget, test it out. Test it out for a week or even a month and see how it goes. Is it something that you can maintain in your budget or not? If not, that's okay. Go back and assess. What are some things that you can change? And again, if it's something that you want to add into your budget, now, for example, you set your goals. Now you're starting to save towards your goals. Try it out. How does it impact you and how does it impact your lifestyle? And when it comes to creating a budget, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about allowing us to see our finances with clarity so that we can make proactive decisions when it comes to our finances when we're working towards achieving wealth for ourselves. So if you've made it this far in the video, I really, really appreciate it. And I hope there's a few tips that you've learned from today that you can implement yourself if you're starting out on your financial journey or looking to even start a budget for yourself. And if you found this video informative, please hit the subscribe button below. And I hope to make more of these videos for you because at the end of the day, money is a great thing. And if we can utilize it to allow us to live the lifestyle that we want and also give back to the community, why not? So thanks once again, and I hope to see you in the next video.